Thank you, Lon. Welcome to the KEDT Mayoral Forum, broadcasting live on KEDT Radio 90.3 FM and streaming on YouTube at your KEDT. I'm Spencer Chiok, All Things Considered host for KEDT FM.
And I'm Kathy Edwards, News Director for KEDT and Morning Show host for Morning Edition.
We have gathered 5 candidates for the position of Mayor of Corpus Christi, which will be decided on Election Day, Tuesday, November 5th. We will begin our KEDT Mayoral Forum with the following rules.
We're going to start with opening statements from the candidates.
Each candidate will have 1 minute and 15 seconds to speak.
Candidates may not address questions to their opponents.
If candidates exceed their allotted time, they will be reminded that their time is up.
And our KEDT Mayoral Forum will conclude with closing statements.
The email address where you can email your questions for the candidates is questions@kedt.org.
And we're going to go from left to right with our candidate answers. And we begin with opening statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute and 15 seconds to talk about their campaign and their important issues. And we start with Mr. Joshua Frederick.
Hi, I'm Joshua Frederick, and I'm running for Mayor of Corpus Christi. I'm running on a platform against the desalination plants to bring more transparency to our government, to fix our roads correctly, not this slapdash way we've been doing it, and to expand on our green spaces. I really believe the best way to build our community is to start building out more green spaces for all of us to enjoy.
Thank you very much. And we'll go to our next candidate, which is Mr. John Kelcusick. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
That's correct. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Go ahead.
The reason I decided to run for mayor, I think we have a genuine united cause here to help everybody have good, drinkable, clean water. My solution to that is cloud seeding. I'm not particularly in favor of desalination because I feel that you can get 75 years worth of cloud seeding for the cost of one desalination plant. Other issues I have, I want to strengthen our police force. I want to see our taxes, our property taxes reduced to zero for our senior citizens. I have a program that I've developed that I would like to see our homeless people get involved with what I call the Clean Beaches Project, which would help all of them and give them dignity, money. Plus, I would also give them temporary housing. I also decided to run because I don't feel that our current elected officials are living up to the city's mission statement, and I think they've failed miserably at it. Our roads are a mess.
And that's time.
And
thank you very much for your answer. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now we go to Dr. Isabel Araiza.
Hello, my name is Dr. Isabel Araiza, and I'm running for mayor. I'm number 2 on the ballot. And basically, I've decided to run for mayor because I've co-founded a group called For the Greater Good. And for over 8 years, we've been advocating for the community, for our environment. We've been asking elected officials to center people when they're making their decisions, and they haven't been doing so. The desalination issue is the thing that ultimately propelled me to run for office, because I think it demonstrates how the rich, the powerful, and special interests are driving the policy in the community. And if I'm elected, I am committed to centering the people, the neighborhoods we live in, the environment, and the services that enhance everybody's quality of life. I believe government should be treated as a public good where we pull all our resources and use that to provide services that enhance the quality of life of all individuals, not just the rich, the powerful, and the well-connected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Araiza. And we next go to Councilman Michael Hunter.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Hunter. I'm number 4 on the ballot running for mayor. I was born and raised in Corpus Christi, went to Trinity University. After I graduated college, came back down here and got my master's at A&M Corpus Christi. A few things that I am running on is water. We need to be looking at all water sources. We are not the only city in the state of Texas that's struggling with water. The whole state is struggling, and we need to be looking at all water sources. We also need to be diversifying our economy. During an oil and gas boom, we do great. When oil and gas isn't doing so great, we struggle down here. One of the main reasons why I'm running is because our taxing and spending is out of control. If you raise taxes 7 out of 8 years, 4 out of the last 4 years, that means your government's broken. You can't fix what you said you were going to fix with raising the taxes that we've raised. That means it's broken. Thank you. My name is Michael Hunter, and I hope to have your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. And finally, we go to Mr. Anthem Powers.
Hey everybody, my name's Anthem Powers. I'm running for mayor. I'm a journeyman plumber, and I just had a feeling I should run. So, with the desal situation, I think we should run a discharge line into the Gulf and just have it handle that so we can promote industry with new water and do it environmentally friendly way. On top of that, we should really just make a good spreadsheet of all the issues on the roads. We'll rank them by which ones are the worst and fix them that way. That's my opinion on that. And then I don't have a good solution for it, but I am in favor of cracking down on the fentanyl epidemic in the city. And I think that about covers all the bases. So thank you guys for having me, and that'll be my time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Powers. And we have our first question.
Yes, the city of Corpus Christi is building a water desalination plant near the Inner Harbor. The project costed will be $757 million. What is your opinion of this water treatment facility in light of the drought we are experiencing here in Corpus Christi? Mr. Frederick, we'll begin with you.
As I mentioned, I am incredibly against the desalination plants in the Inner Harbor or at any location, especially when it is funded by us, the citizens, and not the people that will be utilizing that water. Currently, our water sources, or our water supplies, are 80% consumed by heavy industry. To me, we are heading into a drought, and there's arguably a historical drought going on. But the issue isn't a water supply issue, it's a water consumption issue. I am not for desalination. I am in favor of water reclamation, essentially taking our gray water, force filtering it, and putting it back into our water supply. Or if the heavy industry users would like to self-fund their own desalination plant and take care of it on their own, I would have nothing to say against it as long as it's discharged very, very far into the Gulf.
Thank you. Mr. Kalkusik.
Oh, you really got me on this one, and I'm gonna give you an answer you ain't gonna expect. Desalination, it's a double-edged sword. I kind of support it a little bit, but now when we're talking about the cost of that versus what you can do with cloud seeding, there's no comparison. I don't believe that what happened with our water supply when our water was taken and given to Exxon, given to Dynamic Steel and Sinton, these people that did this, I don't understand. What could they possibly be thinking that it's negligent to give away the city's water when you don't have a backup plan? There's no vote by the citizens. There's no referendum. No citizen participation whatsoever. The citizens got screwed, and that is wrong. They shouldn't have done this. There should have been some type of accountability, transparency, and oversight, which there was not. And they're going to do the same thing with the desalination plant, which they are building right now without any citizen input. This is wrong.
That's your time. Thank you. Dr. Ariza.
So our group first came together around the issue of water to ensure that people had access to water when the city failed to provide its services. And you would think that we would be in favor of desalination, but actually we're the ones that learned about desalination and heavy industry pushing to try to get residents to pay for it. And so we, for the greater good, started trying to raise awareness about this as early as 2017. We organized around it and tried to launch a desal charter amendment to force the city to have a discussion about the pros and cons of desalination. One, it's a manufactured crisis. Two, when they sold our water, they also gave heavy industry a drought exemption. For just 25 cents per 1,000 gallons, industry can use as much water as it wants while we have to curtail. This is a symptom of the problem of allowing special interests to drive policy and expecting people to actually have to make the sacrifices, whether it's material, like the money that we pay, or the water that we consume, so that industry can continue their status quo. That needs to end, and if I'm elected, I will promise to center the people and what they need. We need a far-field study. We actually need a study on the utility rates and the impact that desal can have on that, and I'm committed to pursuing that. Thank you. Sorry, I have my own timer.
Councilman Hunter.
Yes, I am for desal. I'm for looking at all water sources, like I said in my opening. The biggest issue with desal is 5 years ago we did have the opportunity to move forward, and it's been slowed down. The current incumbent ran against desal her first time, and that pretty much put a strong halt to the process. So that's where we're at on desal right now. We have been slowly recovering from that. Now we're at 21% water capacity. We have no solutions. I guess the quickest alternative, if we do get started on a desal plant, which we have not yet, it'll be a 3.5-year period. The only thing to do in between now and then to find us some water is probably to go to Section 4 of the Mary Roads pipe, so that we can ship in about 20 MGD, million gallons a day. That would be the short-term solution. There isn't really much else that we can do right now other than rain barrels.
Thank you, Councilman Hunter. Mr. Powers?
As I stated earlier, I think the good option would just be to run the discharge line out to the Gulf. And if we can get industry to pay for any of this, great. If we can't, we should still work on doing it ourselves. When we hit higher restrictions, though, we do need to crack down a bit on industry with that. Whether, I don't know the whole legalese with it, so, but yeah, but start cutting them off, start lowering their intake, essentially. Again, when we hit more restrictions. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Our second question has to do with streets. The Corpus Christi Rapid Repavement Program is a 5-year endeavor. The focus is on the maintenance and repair of our city streets. Construction contracts total $24 million. Do you see this as a wise use of taxpayer money? Mr. Joshua Frederick.
I don't. I don't see it as a wise use of our money. Excuse me. Currently, we're doing a slapdash job of repairing our roads. By not addressing the water drainage issues or sidewalk access, the rapid repavement program to me has been a bit of a disaster. And as I understand it, we've done 30 centerline miles of road in a year, but we have 1,200 centerline miles that need to be redone. That's a 40-year program. That is not rapid. That should be taken right out of the name. We need to expand on our in-house guys, as well as actually fix the roads so that we don't have to just come back in the next couple of years and redo them again and again and again. There's no reason to can't say that word on TV, halfway do it. We should be doing the entire job the first time so that it's not a continuing issue.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick. And now we go to Mr. John Kelkusik.
Thank you. To put it bluntly, our roads are a mess. There's too much construction going on. There's just, everywhere you look, there's construction. This doesn't help our tourists when they come here and they see a city that looks like a war zone. The problem is you've got all your energy scattered. You need to focus on your priorities, getting what's taken care of that needs immediate attention instead of everywhere, you know. And I even run across where it says the city's comprehensive annual financial report states that the number of potholes filled and square yards of road resurfaced has declined over the last several years. I'd like to know why. They say it's improved, then it says no, it hasn't. You have to finish what you got going on right now before you decide to write any more contracts. You see, another thing is all this excess construction equipment we have to buy, that is something the taxpayers have to pay more for. So we need to cut down the burden on our citizens.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Kalkusik. Dr. Isabella Riza.
So I think one of the things that we have to think about is how we actually fund and address the roads, right? There is a component where it's privatized, and then there's the other part where it's done in-house. In-house is much less expensive. The privatization of repairing our roads, I think, is also potentially problematic, and we need to revisit those contracts so that we can, one, either incentivize when they finish ahead of schedule, or have some sort of sanctions when they don't meet their deadlines. I think we need to transition more of our outsourced work to have it done in-house. But I also think that we have to stop and think about, what incentives are there for private companies to do a good job the first time or the most long-lasting job, because, right, that's their bread and butter. And when we have a department that's committed to actually providing that service, we can think about efficiency, and we can think about like long-term investments, because the less frequent that we have to revisit it, the more money that we can save in that end and then allocate resources elsewhere.
And that's time.
Thank you.
Councilman Hunter.
Sure. So this program was actually started about 5 or 6 years ago when we had about a $900 million budget. A $900 million budget, that's half of what we're working with right now. And this program was supposed to focus on streets that don't have drainage issues. It was supposed to focus on certain PSI qualifying streets that had the correct subgrade material. But we are putting them on some of the incorrect streets. I have to admit that. I think that we've made some mistakes. I mean, there's been about 2 or 3 streets just in the last year that we've done it on a neighborhood street that the road looks great, but the drainage, the curbs, they're torn up, and it's just actually caused worse flooding in certain areas. So that it does need to be relooked at. It needs to be focused on back to the basics on the PSI, the subgrade, the drainage of the streets. The street selection process needs to be updated, basically. But I do think it's a worthwhile program as long as we cover the correct type of residential streets.
Very good, thank you. And finally, Mr. Anthem Powers.
Hey. Again, in terms of which streets are worse, we should have a group of, say, volunteers come, actually, or just a reporting feature, really, through the city. Just mark a pothole on a map, essentially. We go repair those and all that. As for stormwater and drainage, just oversize it. Shouldn't be too complicated. You don't need multi-million-dollar studies on everything. Just oversize it a bit. Pretty simple. I'm a simple guy. I'm sorry if I don't sound as complex as everyone else with this stuff. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're listening to the KEDT Mayoral Forum on KEDT 90.3 and streaming on YouTube. We have 5 candidates running for mayor. Our next question is about city spending. According to a Channel 6 KRIS investigation, the Corpus Christi Yacht Club was one of several restaurants where city staff spent more than $44,000 on food in 1 year. City Manager Peter Zanoni says this is the cost of doing business in the city. What is your opinion of these expenditures? Mr. Frederick, we'll begin with you.
I think they're incredibly problematic. At the best thing I can say about those is that they went to a local business. But honestly, I don't see a reason why we should be paying for these lunches and dinners, especially at such an extravagant place that I can't afford to eat at so regularly. We really need to get a lot of our spending under thumb. It seems like they're kind of going wild with what they think is appropriate. As far as the idea that this is just the cost of doing business, that seems like just a clever way to skirt the irresponsible nature of such wild spending while you're trying to force cuts on other parts of our city, like cutting our wetlands or library hours or trying to sell off a park or senior citizen center. Every little bit helps when it comes to saving, and I know I don't get my lunch paid for by somebody else or have the taxpayers pay for it. So no, I'm very upset about that.
Thank you. Mr. Kalkusik.
Thank you. I see that the spending, these fancy luncheons and all that, that if they want to do that, they should be the ones footing the bill for it. I mean, it shouldn't be up to the citizens. It's another, hey, we can pass the buck. Mr. Zanoni, he should retract that statement, because that just doesn't seem reasonable to expect the citizens to go along with something like that. Our city has accumulated more than $700 million of debt in the last 5 years. I hear all this talk about how we got this wonderful reserve. If we have this reserve, this 20% reserve, why aren't we using that instead of borrowing and piling on to already in the debt that we already have? For the first time in our city's 172-year history, our debt has climbed over $2 billion. No thanks to Mr. Zanoni. Thank you.
Dr. Ariza.
So Zanoni's philosophy about this is the price of doing business, I think actually reveals one of the core problems of our city and why we struggle to provide quality services for people. He and the current leadership have this philosophy of treating government as a business. But businesses are in existence to actually generate profit, right? They want to be more efficient and more effective so that they can have more profits, and then they can decide what to do with those profits. And that's good for business, but government is not business. Government is a public good. And so we should be good and responsible stewards of our tax dollars and trying to spend them so that they can have the greatest good for the greatest number of individuals. And so I think we need a shift in philosophy on how to run government, the priorities that we set, and that's the wonderful thing about being mayor and being part of the city council. We get to set the priorities that then have to be enacted by the city manager and the rest of the staff. And so if I'm elected, I promise you, that's the core belief that I have about government. It's very effective. It can do things well. The issue is, who is it working for? Right now, it works for the rich, the powerful, and the well-connected. If I'm elected, it's going to work for the people. Sorry, I have my own timer. Let's try to lower that.
Councilman Hunter.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, our debt is out of control, as I mentioned earlier. Mr. Kalkusik is correct. If you include interest, we will be around $2.2 billion in debt, which is $7,000 plus per citizen, whether they're old enough to vote or not. I do have to applaud the audit committee. It's made up of a few city council members. They're the ones that actually suggested that the auditor go and check the city manager's office and related departments to find out this information. So this was found in-house. The auditor works directly under the city council. So we have to give them a little bit of credit. But no, the taxpayers should not be paying for extravagant lunches at the cost of doing business for the city. It's ridiculous.
Thank you, Councilman Hunter. Mr. Powers.
Well, I don't know every breakdown on everything, but yeah, it does cost money to run government, and sometimes you do have to grease the wheels, but it does seem very extravagant. I believe that every purchase and expenditure should be defaultly public, just available. Just you don't have to ask for any of the information. I know the certificates of obligation, it's a pain to actually see what they were for. So I'd be for just making that all just publicly available, receipt by receipt, just right from the website. on top of that, I'm not against, in my personal life, I don't like debt. I don't believe in it. I don't think it's the right thing to do. From a larger scale, I don't like it, but it starts to kind of make more sense, and especially with how the US dollar works, with how they can infinitely print essentially these days, I believe we're going to see higher inflation soon. It's a tool and it should be used carefully.
That's your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question has to do with the library board. There's been controversy surrounding book suggestions by the Corpus Christi Library Board. Proposed changes include how the city selects, relocates, or removes books from library shelves. What's your position on these new recommendations for the book collection policy? We'll start with you, Mr. Joshua Frederick.
Banning books is fascism. I am incredibly disappointed that we are moving in that direction. I thought we were getting a lot better as a country and as a state and as a city. It's disheartening to see that there are people trying to force book bans, and we're one step away from book burning, and historically we know how that goes. It is the responsibility of people that don't want those books in there to just not read them, or for parents to actually talk to their children about those books if they don't want their children to read them. That is a personal choice. That is not something you can force upon the public.
Thank you. And Mr. John Kalkusik.
I have to tell you, I share pretty much the same sentiment as Josh here, Mr. Frederick, because he's right. He really is. Made a good point there, and when you bring up the point about fascism, that's what it's getting down to. We need to be able to, keep that freedom of the choice for what we want. And when you don't have it, that's exactly what you get. It's a slippery slope. I mean, but you have to, you have to balance. And it's hard to keep. You can't keep everybody happy, but you're going to have to enact policies that benefit the whole community, regardless if there's always going to be somebody that's not going to be happy, but you're going to try to do your best to accommodate the vast majority. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Ariza.
Libraries are a public space. They're one of the few spaces in our societies where people can just go and be. And public libraries are for everybody. The library board really politicized something that should not be politicized. We have library professionals that can see what's being used and consumed. They can make decisions for everyone. And so I am just appalled by what's happening with the library board, especially because they're targeting our LGBTQ community members who are already marginalized and made to feel less safe, and I find that to be unacceptable. Parents are supposed to be responsible for their children. We have people who are on council that appointed these individuals, so elections matter because we get to appoint people. I know that if I get elected, I will choose people that value diversity, that accept and see that our diversity is our strength, not something to be scared of. And also they should be advocating for our libraries. We had budget cuts to the libraries instead of politicizing them.
Thank you very much. Councilman Hunter.
Hi, yes. So the library board selection that I chose was based on diversifying our library board members. I don't think that it's okay to have material that is not good for kids. I don't care where you are sexually. If you feel like you are a girl or a guy, or you like a girl or a guy, I don't care. If some of this material does not need to be in our public libraries, and the taxpayers knew that you were funding these types of books for everybody, regardless of where you stand, as long as everything is age appropriate, put in the correct sections, I think it's okay. That's why I voted that way. That's pretty much it, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mr. Powers.
No pornography in the children's section. That's my stance. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Residents of Corpus Christi have been in water restrictions since June of 2022. In a report by Channel 3 KIII, residential use has dropped by 1 million gallons a day from 2022 to 2023. However, industrial use accounts for more than 50% of water use, but they have not seen any restrictions. Would you support placing any industrial restrictions going forward? Mr. Joshua Frederick, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I mentioned before, it is not an issue of our water resources. It is an issue of our consumption, and not even our consumption, the residents. It is an industrial consumption issue. Reducing 1 million gallons is fantastic, but when you have certain plants that use 25 million gallons a day, it's a drop in the bucket. There should be restrictions, or let the free market work as it will, and as our supply dwindles, they can start paying more for all that they use, and upwards of hundreds of dollars for a single gallon if that's what it takes. We have to do something to curtail that use. There's no magical solution to getting more water, as is obviously very much argued about up here, but there is something we can do about the issue of consumption, and restrictions or increasing the cost to heavy industry for their water is going to be the quickest solution to get us off of those water restrictions.
Great, thank you. Mr. John Kalkusik.
These people to come here and they want water, they offer our city's water, and it bothers me because our officials knew that when they did this, we didn't have the water to spare. That's negligent. When you bring the desal, or when you bring the companies in here like Exxon, Dynamic Steel, and then you say, oh, but look at the jobs. Oh, but look at the economy. But then you neglect to tell everybody, oh, by the way, we just thought we'd let everybody know that we just ran out of our 50-year water supply, 13 years ahead of schedule. That's wrong. I don't see how desalination is going to help us a whole lot, because it's not going to be used for the people. They're already talking about desal comes here. They want to put it for more businesses. That's wrong. The people are going to get neglected and screwed again. That's wrong. This has to stop. We need people that actually care about the citizens instead of their own self-serving interests. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Isabella Riza.
So we in For the Greater Good have actually been talking about this issue since we read the Water Conservation Plan of 2019. Basically, what we learned in 2018 was that in 2017, when they promised water to Steel Dynamics and Gulf Coast Growth Ventures, that they also passed an ordinance that allowed for high volume water users to pay 25 cents per 1,000 gallons to be exempt from drought restrictions. Not only that, there's also a caveat in there that if we end the drought exemption that they're given, then we have to wait 5 years before that drought exemption can cease. So again, this is a perfect example of the imbalance in our decision making, and For the Greater Good has been talking about this since 2019. Not only that, the Water Conservation Report has a segment for industrial users where they could insert their water conservation plan, which they have not done, and they haven't provided that information. In fact, all they have to do is turn over some documents to TCEQ, and we, the community, never see them. And so far, there haven't been people, except for Jim Klein and Sylvia Campos, advocating for that, but for more transparency. But For the Greater Good has been on this since we learned about it, and I promise you that's going to be at the center of my decisions.
Thank you, Dr. Ariza. Councilman Michael Hunter.
Sure. So first of all, let's just say this. There's a tremendous amount of misinformation out there on the water usage subject. However, the document relating to how businesses, not just industrial, but all businesses are able to use water, and the homes are able to use water during stages, does need to be really looked at, because it's basically the same piece of paper that was written a long time ago. But industry on average, does reuse about 80%, at least 80% of the water that they take in. You can't really say that about any other business inside the city, so they will have to be separated on the document outside of the, industry versus commercial businesses. I do think it needs to be relooked at. I wouldn't say that it would be a drastic change, because here's the thing. We're all paying that water. About 7 years ago, the average salary in this city was $28,000 a person. All those industries that we brought in has bumped that up to $57,500 a person. They pay for the water too.
Thank you, Councilman Hunter. Mr. Anthem Powers.
Well, I think we should work with the refineries and try to have them update their systems. I believe that the largest consumer of water of theirs is their cooling tower systems, a lot of which are in severe disrepair. I just encourage them to update their equipment and fix their steam leaks, essentially. But I could be wrong. There might be some other sources that I don't know about. As for cost, I think it should just be even across the board, no favoritism with high volume producers. But as restrictions get worse, there should be a cutoff point. I'm thinking maybe 15, maybe 10%, somewhere in there, where we let them know ahead of time, and hey, if it hits this number, we just have to shut the water off until we're back up to over 15, 20%. It really sucks, but we can't run out of water. That would be chaos. Just hospitals, and people in general, just people who can't leave.
That's your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're listening to and watching the KEDT Mayoral Forum, broadcasting live on KEDT Radio 90.3 FM and streaming on YouTube at your KEDT. And if you have any questions for the candidates, we will try to save some time at the end of this forum for questions. You can address those questions to questions@kedt.org. And speaking of questions, our next one is, well, we talked about streets. So Corpus Christi contains thousands of miles of streets. As city staff continues to work diligently on fixing those streets and roadways, what other investments do you believe should be made in Corpus Christi? Mr. Frederick.
I think we need to reinvest in our public green spaces. They're one of the best places to start rebuilding our community and strengthening our community. I'd like to partner with Flower Bluff ISD and Corpus Christi ISD to get seed or sapling native plants and bushes in the schools for the classrooms to take care of on an individual basis until they're large enough to be transplanted to either somewhere else on the school grounds or a city park or another public green space. I know I get excited whenever I've grown something from a seed or sapling. I know children could love to do that as well. And if you want to see more of them out in our parks, if you want to stop complaining about kids don't play outside anymore, then make outside a lot nicer. You'll see families start to come around and our community grow exponentially when you make outside nicer. Our city can really reinvest in our green spaces.
Thank you. Mr. Kalkusik.
Well, there's no doubt whatsoever the roads need to be fixed, but if they were to reallocate the funds, I would strongly advocate for putting the funds to use for our police force. And right now they currently have 501 officers. I would do all I could to make sure that we could get that number up to our recommended level of 600 officers. I think that would be a really, really good start. Like, we just opened a brand new skate park. It cost $6 million somewhere in the city. I don't know where it was, skateboard park, but $6 million, that means you could pay 100 officers $60,000 for a year. And it just takes one project to put off one project in order to achieve that. And There's other projects, but you know, my two major issues though is helping our police force, strengthening it, and giving them everything that they need to get by every single day. Regardless of what it is, you know, we need to take care of our men in blue and women in blue.
Thank you very much. Dr. Ariza.
So whenever there's a budget crisis, the public services that the people use that actually directly affect their quality of life are the things that get put on the chopping block. And it's wrong that we have to fight to keep our parks open, to keep our libraries open, to keep our senior centers open. You know, we really need to invest in the services that the community uses, like our parks, our libraries, our senior centers. That can really enhance people's quality of life. But we also need to pay attention to our animal care services and our homeless services that have been starved for resources. Also, the funding mechanism so that we can provide services really favors, like with our homeless services, big established business organizations. And there are groups in the community that are doing really wonderful work with very limited resources. And so we need to restructure the rules so that they can also, you know, have access to those resources to expand what they're doing effectively. People can't walk outside in their neighborhoods because of stray animals, and that's not acceptable. We need vector control because they can't go outside to enjoy those parks. I would say we really need to center where people live and the services that enhance those quality of life issues.
Thank you very much. Councilman Hunter.
Water, water, water. We're at 21% capacity. It should be the #1 topic going into this election. We don't have water. If you go into the next few stages and everyone's walking around smelling because they can't take a shower, can you imagine what's going to happen to all of your public officials then? We should have pulled the trigger 5 years ago, and we didn't. And we've been pushing off other water options up until now. For example, the Evangeline Water Group. We can't figure out. They say one thing, city staff says another thing. There's all kinds of misinformation going around just between the council and these two different groups. So anyways, diversifying the economy, we need to continue to work with the Type A and the Type B boards, our tax incremental reinvestment zones. We need to give our kids different opportunities to stay here in Corpus Christi. Public safety is another great opportunity to focus on spending. More officers, more officers, more officers. I think we hit a all-time high in June for homicides this year, so we do need more public safety.
Thank you very much. Mr. Powers.
The question was more programs that...
Well, what other investments do you think the city should be involved in besides streets?
Okay. I would like to see a program for small business grants for upcoming businesses, new businesses. Small business is the backbone of the nation, and it's over the past 30 years, more than that, it's just been slowly dying. I think people have great ideas and just they're so bogged down that it's hard to get anything off the ground. I think a grant system for new businesses would help that, and I'd also like to see a system for forcing use of unoccupied buildings, essentially, commercially. And then I'd also like to start raising our minimum wage in the city. I believe $10 is fair. With the crazy inflation, housing's doubled, food's doubled, wages haven't quite. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, crime discussed there by many of you. Our next topic, according to the latest crime report by the FBI, crime in Corpus Christi is 68% higher than the national average. From a law enforcement perspective, what would you like to see happen to lower that number? Mr. Frederick, we'll begin with you.
You know, I believe the last number I saw was that we are down 40. I apologize for not knowing exactly, but I believe it's about 40 officers on the force. And I feel to get up to the average per citizen we do need to fill those slots and encourage more police officers. But I also believe that safety comes from community and community engagement. Nobody's better adept at dealing with these things than actually strong-built communities. Knowing your neighbors, interacting with them, knowing and being able to identify people that don't belong in your neighborhood or that are doing something nefarious is one of the best steps you can have, which is, again, why I'm so for expanding upon our green spaces.
Thank you. Mr. John Kalkusik.
Thank you for the question. Yes, to correct Josh a little bit on that, that was, we're 99 officers short right now. We have 501 officers. Yeah, like I said, we could find ways to get the money for our officers in crime control. Like I said, we're not prioritizing on our needs. It's being neglected, and this doesn't help the city. Like my other idea is, since we're short on officers, I would like to see a citizens militia being formed under my leadership that would have 10,000 members. Get that? And what they would do is they would work together with our police force. I would have them trained in urban and guerrilla warfare. I would have them suited up with all the possible hardware and guns, ammo, whatever they need, working side by side with our police, and bringing more stability, more community involvement, more community programs, and people saying, wow, look at this, we got our own city militia. It's giving people an identity.
Thank you.
Dr. Ariza.
So I'm a sociologist by training, and studied groups and how important group membership is. And so building community is probably the best way of enhancing safety, enhancing green spaces, helps with mental health and well-being. There's studies that show that when there's even extreme events, when people know their neighbors, they're more likely to survive those things, climate conditions, that kind of stuff. And so I actually think that what we need to be doing is investing in those opportunities that allow us to come together. For the Greater Good adopted a park when the city was selling parks. And we have events there that are free and open to the public, so that we can get to know each other. Sidewalks are really important because people walk on sidewalks, and that gives you an opportunity to interact with community members and get to know them, and build trust. Libraries and public pools are important. All of those things can actually enhance safety and well-being, and make people not just feel safer, but also be safer. Because when you build community, you build trust, and we start to look out for one another. And so we can enhance our quality of life by addressing those things.
That's your time. Thank you. Councilman Hunter.
Sure. So community involvement is very impactful and very important, and we should express the need to do a better job there. However, violent crimes are what is skyrocketing right now, and we do not have enough police officers. So the focus should be to having more police officers. The numbers that have been discussed here is we approximately have 600 officers in this city, then we will reach the national and state averages to the number of officers per citizen in comparison. We are down about 100. We probably even need to be higher there, because if your crime is higher, you need more to combat the crime. Violent crime is up, we need more officers. That's the main solution.
Thank you. Mr. Anthem Powers.
I like police officers. I've been on a couple ride-alongs when I was younger, but throughout the years I've noticed that the police in general do have a bad image, just with general people. I always wave to officers when I'm driving by them. My girlfriend gets mad at me for it. She's like, no, don't. But anyway, we need to work on ways of, appearing as though police aren't necessarily a threat to standard people. They're not, but some people have the idea that that's how it is, and we need to find ways to deal with that. But we do need to deal with the crime, we do need to deal with the gangs, we do need to deal with the drug issues. And I'm for deregulating the police as much as they need to deal with these issues, working with government or federal agencies as much as we can to deal with these issues. That's about it. I'm not, again, not the most knowledgeable on these topics. These are just things I'm seeing, things I'm feeling. So, thank you.
You know, on the topic of crime, we've talked a little bit about that. And beyond law enforcement, what do you think needs to happen locally to keep crime numbers down, if anything? Mr. Frederick.
I feel like I keep harping on the same point. It's apparently pretty fundamental. Community growth, community events. The more you know your neighbors, the more you interact with them, the safer you actually are by the numbers. There's so much more we can be doing to expand on our community. And also, if you want to start lowering the crime issues, start, as I mentioned before, as was mentioned up here, doing something about our homeless population. I believe in a housing first solution, providing simple, small houses, either built on taxpayer dollars or reclaimed from properties that have been turned over to the city or the county due to tax reasons or sometimes illicit or nefarious activities. Reinvesting a couple of dollars into those and providing them at no cost to the housing community. You want to see more free time for our officers? Make them not have to deal with the houseless community as often. Rounding them up before major festivals and events is not a solution. It doesn't actually help anything. They just come out after the party's over, and you just keep having that cyclical problem.
Thank you very much. Mr. John Kalkusik.
Can you repeat that question, please?
Well, we were talking about crime, and the main thing to deter crime is law enforcement. But can you come up with some other reasons or other ways that we can lower the crime rate besides law enforcement?
When I think about that, I mean, you really can't blame our law enforcement. It's hard to really just point your finger and say, this is why the crime, has gone the way it has. But you can't overlook the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And I just lost my train of thought for a second. But I'll get back to that. But I'll try something else. But the thing is, like, community involvement, that's really good. The militia, like I talked about, having a citizens militia where you're actually getting your community involvement, people in little neighborhood, little bit of groups, little by little. No, what I was trying to say before, though, is a lot of our problems are coming just from, like, national issues, like the economy. People are getting more desperate because the economy is tanking.
And that's your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Ariza.
So I actually served on the Crime Prevention Board, and that's the board that basically decides what to do with the 1/8 cent sales tax, which generates between $9 to $11 million per year. And right now, all of that money is actually going to the police. When it was first instituted, part of that money was actually going to programs targeting families and children that were at risk and, like, showing that they were engaging in behaviors that could later lead to, delinquent behavior. I would like to see, and we advocated when I was sitting on that board, for using some of that money to support families, to bring in social worker to have something, but that was voted down. I would like to see expansion of programs and services like with Parks and Recreation so that kids can have places to go and things to do that are affordable. Right now, that's just not available. There's a lot of club sports especially as the competition level and the skill level gets higher, but it prices kids and families out of that. And we need to create opportunities for kids to do those things and develop skill sets and also develop a sense of belonging in addition to having, their time occupied and their energy expended.
Thank you. Councilman Hunter.
Sure. So I guess, this outside of hiring new officers, we could encourage a lot of potential protocols like community involvement that's been stated many times. The Next Door app, neighborhood watch programs that we have set up throughout the city. That's really the first step, encouraging businesses and residents or industrial groups wherever crime is high, encourage setting up cameras, other safety protocols. I'm a victim of this. This happened downtown to me. I was held at gunpoint not too long ago. It actually made the news pretty strongly. And 72 security cameras were placed downtown in that exact location because of the incident. So it is a possibility that could happen to anybody. And I'm a big guy. I wouldn't say I'm the first target down the street. But we also need to be working with all other government entities, the port, the Del Mar, CCISD, and the county. If we're working together, we can solve this issue.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Powers.
Other than police, ways to get down crime, I think there are 3 good options on this, or not even options, we have to do them all. We have to raise people up into the middle class so they don't feel desperate. We need to empower our churches and bring a sense of community through Christ. And everyone who's able to, I believe, should be involved in a sport. It's good for you, whether it be, pick-up game of flag football with some friends. If you get into a martial art, I've been involved with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for over 5 years now. I love it. Or even just going to the gym and lifting some weights. It's great. Everyone should be involved with these things. If you can, health problems and all that, do what you can. But if you've been on the fence about it and you're watching this, I highly encourage you just go out there, pick up a sport. Thank you.
Thank you. You are listening and watching the KEDT Mayoral Forum, and we're broadcasting live on KEDT Radio 90.3 FM and also streaming on YouTube at Your KEDT. And we do have a couple of questions that people have emailed. This one says, with the increasing difficulty and cost of obtaining homeowners and windstorm insurance, particularly in high-risk areas, what strategies will you implement to ensure residents have access to affordable and reliable insurance options? Mr. Joshua Frederick.
Yeah, this one's actually hitting really close to home. I'm literally in the middle of buying a house right now, my first home, and insurance is, it is daunting. They're really sticking it to you there. Recently I believe we just renegotiated with the Texas windstorm insurance to keep the same rate. They didn't have the opportunity to increase it, if I'm remembering correctly, and that was awesome. That's fantastic, and we do need to continue to do more collective bargaining like that. There needs to be limits placed upon these kinds of things. Beyond that, I don't really have a solution for those things. I apologize for not having one, but there's obviously not a quick and easy solution to it.
Thank you. Mr. Kalkusik.
Well, I gotta tell you, with the way inflation's going, the economy's going, it's really, really difficult for virtually any insurance company to keep their costs down and not pass it on to the citizens. They're fighting a tough battle just as much as the citizens are, and what type of legislation could you enact to make the insurance industry seem a little bit more friendly to the citizens instead of like this like the albatross, around your neck. It's just, that ball and chain. Oh, you bought a house. Oh, good God, here comes that insurance. So there has to be something in the cards there that can help kind of level it out. Or even possibly I could see where, based on your income, maybe this would help, you give a break depending on how much you make, instead of, just everybody having to pay whatever. I think.
Thank you.
And that way they could be reciprocated for helping the citizens.
And that's your time. Thank you very much. Dr. Ariza.
So there's actually, I think, two things that we can do at the city level that can have an impact on that. The first one is the impact fees that we have. We need to have responsible development that doesn't have development in those areas that are prone to flooding and that are going to be impacted by the rising water levels. So if we can incentivize building in the community as opposed to out along the coastal lines, that's one thing that we can do to address that. The second thing we can do is actually establish the Resiliency and Sustainability Committee that was advocated for last year. For every $1 that's spent on resiliency and sustainability, you can actually save $6 in terms of the impact of not planning for these extreme weather events. NOAA has a coastline management program that offers millions of dollars in grants to coastline communities to address issues like flooding. And so we can do work with the environment and address some of those issues that can have a ripple effect in terms of the cost and things like insurance. So I'll yield the rest of my time.
Thank you very much. Councilman Hunter.
Yeah, so the biggest insurance policy that affects us is windstorm. Windstorm is the most expensive policy by far. That is decided at the state level. However, locally we can get together like we have done and form groups to go fight it. There was about 400 to 500 people in the last two events fighting to reduce those windstorm rates, and they won. We won. We did a good job, so the community needs to give themselves a little bit of an applause. What the state should be doing, and I think they finally are, is they're doing a statewide disaster relief plan. I guess I couldn't find the right wording for it in the past, but that's what they're going to be moving towards, and I hope that they do. And what that does is it includes hail, tornadoes, earthquakes, and shockingly certain areas, because there are fault zones here, and other major disasters that will be included in a statewide disaster plan. But that's been said, flood is the main issue that we can affect at the city level. We have implemented policies, one that I'm proud of, and high risk flood zones, which is to basically build 6 inches to a foot higher, and that'll reduce your costs. You'll actually save a lot more money over time that way.
Thank you very much. Mr. Powers.
Well, the housing market is inflated. Appraisals, it's causing houses to be overappraised, and so insurance is raising the rates and all that. Frankly, I think the only insurance people should be required to have is auto insurance, because they're moving with the other vehicles. But housing insurance, I think it should be optional. On top of that, prices are up. Corporations buy up residential housing. I'd like to see a tax set on corporate-owned residential housing, just to discourage it. So, if you're a person, you have a second house, you run an Airbnb, sure. But if it's a corporation buying 40, 50 lots and just setting them up for that, then that's too much, and should be taxed higher.
Thank you very much. And we're going to go to final statements. I bet you're happy this is all these grueling questions are over. We're going to go to final statements. Mr. Joshua Frederick, you've got 1 minute and 15 seconds.
Thank you. Well, giving us a great platform to talk about some of the issues that the city's facing. There's obviously considerably more, but right now I'm running for mayor, and of course I'd appreciate your vote. But to be honest, just by the numbers alone, if we're looking down the dais here, it's going to go to a runoff, and I know there are two quote-unquote front runners in that runoff, but the citizens of Corpus Christi have the opportunity right now to unite behind me and get my name on there, because it's only going to be two of them in that runoff. And if we actually want to see change, if you drive around the city and you see things you would like to see done differently, then I believe I am your candidate. I do humbly ask for your vote. My name is Joshua Frederick. I'm first name on the ballot, so you're going to have to scroll past me if you're not voting for me.
Thank you very much. And Mr. John Kalkusik.
Thank you. Okay. Reason I decided to run for mayor, well, my banner's back here, so I have to say, when I read the mission of the city of Corpus Christi is to deliver municipal services which meet the vital health, safety, and general welfare needs of the citizens and which sustain and improve their quality of life. As we work to achieve this mission, we will employ fiscal discipline, continuous improvement, first-rate customer services, and straightforward communications. In this work, we will tolerate no mediocrity. My sentiment about that is I've been given absolutely no reason believing our elected officials have fully honored that statement. Their performance has been noticeably mediocre at best. Our city cannot afford another 2 years of being ruled over by self-serving, despotic narcissists and sociopaths. If you aren't getting the services you pay for and deserve, then consider electing John Kalkusik for Mayor of Corpus Christi.
Thank you very much. Dr. Isabel Ariza.
My name is Dr. Isabel Ariza, and I'm number 2 on the ballot. I'm asking for your vote. I have a PhD in sociology. I've studied the relationship between government and the economy and how it shapes people's life chances. I will bring that expertise with me as I serve on the dais. What I know right now is that government works really well for the rich, the powerful, and the well-connected. We need leadership that will require government to work for the people, and I will be that person. For 8 years with For the Greater Good, I have been advocating for our community, for our environment, and for the neighborhoods that we lived in. And for 8 years, we have been ignored, even as more and more people have come up to talk about what they want and what they need. I'm tired of asking for permission and for asking leadership to do the right thing. I want to be on the dais so that I can do that for us. The mayor has the power to set the agenda, and if you elect me, I promise you I will center the people, the neighborhoods we live in, and the services that we use. My name is Isabel Ariza. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to arizaformayor.com and you can see more of what I'm about. Thank you for the opportunity to serve you.
Thank you very much. Councilman Michael Hunter.
All right, thank y'all very much for having us. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. I think we've all grown through the forum process, and we've definitely gotten pretty good. And luckily, I have a hat on, so I look a little better on camera. The city's not doing that well, shockingly. I mean, we're spending a lot of money, but is every dollar being used effectively, efficiently?
Sir, please give Hunter his time.
It's all right. Financially, we are struggling. We can't figure out whether or not we should tax you more or, sorry, I've been a little distracted for a second. I will yield my time. My name is Michael Hunter, and I am running for Mayor of Corpus Christi.
Thank you very much, Councilman Hunter. And finally, Mr. Anthem Powers.
Sorry about that, Mike. I was trying to encourage him to open it.
I can't do that when people are talking.
Sorry. Hey, I'm Anthem Powers. I'm just a guy, a bit of an idiot. That's how it is. But everyone up here I sincerely believe everyone here is a good person. No wrong choices, really. What can I say? I'll get us a Buc-ee's.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anthem Powers. You know, you've been watching and listening to the KEDT Mayoral Forum, and we've been broadcasting live on KEDT Radio 90.3 FM and on YouTube Live at your KEDT. I want to thank each and every one of our candidates for coming in today. Both Spencer and I really appreciate the fact that you took the time to come here, and I think we know a lot more about all of you and about all the issues as well. So thank you so much. I'm KEDT News Director Kathy Edwards, and also morning show host for Morning Edition. And
I'm Spencer Chiak, All Things Considered host for KEDT 90.3 FM. Thank you so much for joining us today for the KEDT Mayoral Forum. Don't forget to vote. Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th.
And we throw it back to Lon in the studio.
Thank you very much, Kathy and Spencer, and thank you to all the